Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is Debbie G of Spirituality Gone Wild.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
Neo is out driving today. He won't be with us, and we'll be looking forward to having a visit from him next time. But Debbie G is here, and she is still the excited owner of the new property in Utah. I mean, I imagine that's kind of like a main thing that's on your mind these days. Am I right?
Well, it really actually it is, and it's in Colorado.
Colorado, I'm sorry, not Utah.
Yeah, but you know what? I love driving through so that I can see Utah. Actually, yeah, I am really excited. We put it up. We put the rooms up on Airbnb, and we've got a traveling nurse staying for 3 months. And
nice.
And the property is just sort of saying, we bought a ranch, Ash, and it's really rad. And it's in Colorado on the outskirts of Alamosa. So it's like right by the Great Sand Dunes and whatnot. And it's really, really neat. It's called the Gratitude Ranch.
Nice.
Which is a great name. And it's also, it's basically a retreat center is what you're going to make it into, right?
Correct. That's what it will become. Hip camp and all types of fun stuff for healing journeys out there. So it's going to be, it is becoming that.
That's very
I'm
cool.
excited about our new guest. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, we got to learn a little bit more about Ash. Her name is Ash Pariseau, and Ash has a story that is very much like the same kind of story you see a lot on social media. Usually young women, usually complaining about how, either they're in abusive relationships and they don't know what to do about it, or they are not sure where the good guys are or whatever. And Ash faced the same kind of dilemma, but unlike many, she took some constructive action to figure out what was going on and ultimately to make changes in herself, and became an expert as a result. So this is going to be a really cool conversation we're having here. So Ash, first of all, thank you for joining us. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me. I am doing awesome. How about yourself?
Doing fine, thank you. And you got to give us a better, more detailed version of the story than I just gave, because I really kind of gave, like the 10,000 foot view.
Well, it's one of those conversations that I see coming up time and time again, and I'm sure you guys do as well. Young girls asking, where have all the good men gone? It seems to be one of the most popular questions in our, dating culture today. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I really like to explore certain things that women are having issues with. And there are some patterns and things that I've noticed. It's just one of those things that I don't know if I would say that I have all the answers, but I do have a little bit of insight. And through my writing and through my coaching, I like to help women explore that. And, what does a good man look like to them? And what are they doing? Like, what are the steps that they're taking to achieve their goal of finding a man who they think is a good man? So I'm in here in the mix, just helping women out, figuring out who is the good man that they're looking for, and I would like to help them find that person.
Which is a laudable goal. And I also gather that you went through your own stuff. Tell us about your own experience. What was your experience like that led you to this?
Yeah, well, like a lot of young women, there was a lot of, trial and error and figuring out what my interests are and what kind of person I am, what kind of person I align well with. And, like a lot of women, I've, dated a few different guys in my late teens, early 20s. And not all of them were a good fit for me. And some of them are just downright no good. Mm-hmm. And, you got to kind of figure it out. And, just through time and through self-reflection, self-awareness, I began to just notice certain patterns and make small adjustments in myself and the type of person that I was paying attention to. And through time, I think that I have been able to find a partner that is a good fit for me, who I consider a good man.
That's a great thing. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Actually, this is a story that has been going on for generations, I think. I mean, certainly it continues to be a big issue today and probably bigger than ever. But I remember when I was single and confused It works both ways, by the way. It's also where all the good women go. It just depends on what your gender is, really.
Yes.
But, it's a very, very big question. And I know in my own case, for me, it was about coming to grips with something that I didn't think was happening, which was I didn't think it was me. I thought it was them.
Oh, Walt, I love you.
But it's true. That's exactly what I thought. And I thought that, Debbie, I didn't just think that. I thought that for 20 years.
Well, I think that we all do when we haven't learned to be accountable. Yeah, that's not abnormal. But I love that, Walt. I really
I love it now. I didn't love it so much then.
Okay. So relationship connection and communication are my jam. I love this. Let's talk about value systems, because it's my guess that you got really in touch with your values.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was single for a long time, and I was older and single for a long time by choice. But it was my value systems that I really wasn't aware of. And that's why I was aligning. I really wasn't dating either, but I would align with, if I attempted it, with somebody that wasn't meeting my values, which I maybe didn't necessarily know at the time. Talk to me about how that you have worked through some of that with your values in your own relationship. And then how are you guiding others to really discover the true values that they're seeking?
Yeah, well, I've always been someone that's more interested in long-term relationships, long-term connections that could lead to marriage. So when you think about, the vetting system between short-term and long-term relationships, you're often talking about completely different criteria. And I think that that's something that a lot of women don't understand. They'll say, well, where all the good guys go? And they'll ask me. And then I'll say, do you want the short or the long answer? The short answer is there are good men everywhere. You just got to know what you're looking for. And then they, a lot of these women say, well, I want a good man. And then they think, well, that has to be a man that has, this amount of income, this kind of a job, has a nice car. And they look at all of these very tangible, outwards, surface area things that look good on paper, but they're not digging into his personality. They're not digging into his character or his moral compass. They're not and a lot of these women don't understand, who they are as people and what type of personality they fit well with. So when they just look at things like, the wealth and status of a man and, how much money he has, that's good, but it's, it's not going to take you to the long term in and of itself. So that's kind of the thing that I help women sort of, dig into is, are you looking for somebody that looks good on paper? Are you looking for somebody that is going to be a potential life partner?
Yeah, in other words, who are they really at, and what is that real person like that you're looking for?
Yeah.
Not what do they look like in terms of, like you say, what do they look like on paper, but who are they?
Exactly.
Because that's it.
I really did. I dig that, because it is. I remember kind of skipping over all that.
Yeah, I think we all do, right?
I just skip over it. He's hot. Done deal. Right? Just over. Because, I just not even those. Yeah. And then later go, I probably did see that at some point that wasn't going to work.
Yeah. And I understand attraction and passion is very strong. And those things are important in any relationship too, but once the novelty of that wears off and you get past that honeymoon phase and then you get comfortable with each other, then you're left with somebody who, might be hot, but maybe you can't stand them otherwise.
Pretty much. That's
well
it.
said.
I love this. Okay.
Yeah.
Dear golly. Yes. So as I've gotten older, the thing that became more important to me was my emotional attraction.
Mm-hmm.
Way, way bigger for me right now. My husband's watching right now, actually.
Hey there, Joe.
And he knows we've talked about this because I feel that is, there's longevity and emotional attraction versus physical attractions. And I think that's kind of what you're saying too, but I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, definitely. Emotional attraction, you have to be a self-aware person, first of all. And then when you get to know somebody, it does take time. You can't just, date somebody for, a week or two and then, expect to know whether or not this person is a good fit for you long term. So it takes time. And, especially with emotions, you don't express yourself and really get to know the other person emotionally right away. So when you take your time, you just kind of have to, just keep yourself in check and how things are going. And I think one mistake a lot of people make is they jump into commitments very soon. And then, they'll move in with somebody really quickly, making big commitments that are kind of hard to get out of if things don't go well. It is fair, emotions are something that you have to just take your time with, for sure.
I think it starts with knowing yourself, really.
Yeah.
Which is probably the one thing that's what I was referring to earlier when I said it was about me, because really I didn't know myself as well as I thought I did.
Yeah, I hope that answers your question, Debbie.
Oh, I think that was fantastic. And I agree. There is getting to know each other without all of the walls up and everything. And you're right. We did think I thought it was all them too. Don't worry. Oh, for sure. I thought for sure I just picked the wrong guys.
Over and over and over.
Over and over, yeah. Can you believe how it's them?
It's amazing how many of them are.
I tell you. How many people actually came to you and said that? And what give me a fun story. Give me a fun story.
Well, I think to a degree, for a little while, I was telling myself that. But the thing is, I think that the one thing I realized is that I think that the question of where have all the good men gone, if you want to know my honest opinion on why this question is being asked so much, and I think that it's almost like a blame shift, because if we get to even suggest that there might be a lack of good men, or just, if we're, swapping the genders, good women as well, just good people, then we get to, almost convince ourselves that it's not us, like you guys were just saying. Like, there's just a lack of people, and that's why we can't find it, because they're not out there. So we almost get to excuse and trick ourselves to, excusing that we can't find anybody because, oh, it's not that I'm doing something wrong. It's just because that they don't exist. And that's one thing that, although I think it's easy in the moment to believe because it makes, that ego feel good. But in the end, you kind of realize how many good people that you're going to run into in life. And if you just have a closed, bitter mentality that there's no good men or women left, you're already, shutting yourself off from the potential of meeting somebody who could be well suited for you and somebody who you could love and have a real connection with.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And I also think it's important to do what we can to take blame out of the equation entirely, because you're right. We could be shifting blame, but all that really means is that we were blaming ourselves in the first place. And that doesn't help either. Blaming ourselves, blaming others, it doesn't really matter who you're blaming. The blame is really just messing things up.
Exactly.
So instead, we got to shift the whole thing around. So we're not thinking of it in terms of blame, but we're trying instead to understand how can I not only be a better me, but how can I do a better job of finding the better him or the better her that I'm looking for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What about the mirror? the mirror that we are for one another. How do you see that working in, because this is one of the things I know, that whatever I'm seeing in my hubby that's irritating me is probably something within me that I'm not speaking my truth about, or this type, that kind of thing. How do we get it through to, how do you get it through to the people that you're working with, that there's a mirror there, that there's an accountability process? Do you take them through one to help them to get to the self-awareness point?
Yeah. So in a coaching session, I'll ask certain self-reflecting questions. And we call these powerful questions in the coaching space. And it just, in the actual coaching sessions, I don't like to give a whole lot of advice unless I am asked to give advice. So I'll just kind of ask them questions just to kind of get the gears turning a little bit. And, just make them, not really make them, but just sort of hold space for them to come to an awareness. And I like to ask questions that people have never really thought of on their own. Just questions that aren't really native to how, what you would think about, just sitting by yourself. So, I'll ask them, well, what would happen if, the worst case scenario happened? Or, what would you think? What would you think, or what would it look like to you to have, what does a good man look like to you? And like, say, for example, I would ask, what makes you think that a good man would want to be with you? What is it about you that would make a good man attracted to you? So that kind of gets the gears turning, is, what is it about me that a good man might find attractive? So that kind of, starts the process of the accountability, and what's going on inside of me that I am either doing right or wrong. Mm-hmm. What could I change? What am I doing that is working? What am I doing that is not working? And it kind of puts that responsibility, but also the power within themselves. Because although you can't change the world, you can't change other people or control other people, you can start making adjustments within yourself. You can change your responses to people. You can change the type of people that you're paying attention to, the type of people that you're giving a chance to be in your life. And through this awareness, it kind of sort of, digs up some of the dirt. It digs up some of, the blind spots that they have. And that's kind of what I do in my work, is help them see the blind spots and see what is it about men that they're not seeing? What is about, the rich hot men that they think that are perfect. It kind of puts like the reality there.
Yeah, you're basically being the person that Debbie just described. She described the partner as being a mirror, but as the coach, you're being the mirror. Yes. You're mirroring back to them what they're putting out, and you're helping them understand that that's what you're doing.
Yeah, I totally love that. That is great, because then I think it's super important. Let's go down the self-love, the walk of self-love.
Yeah.
Yeah, self-love is definitely important. It's probably one of the biggest foundations. And what I like to focus on is like self-respect and self-worth. Mm-hmm. I think that once you have self-respect, self-worth, self-love, then you're automatically, like, once you have that solid, you are going to act in a way where you're just not going to allow crap into your life. Whether that's friends, family, a boyfriend or a girlfriend, a job, everyone has certain boundaries, and like, everybody has certain limits, and something that is not good for you. You're just like, no, I am not dealing with that. And I think it's important for people to be able to have that strength in finding that, even in those moments of weakness where they do find somebody that they are attracted to, but maybe they have, a habit of lying or cheating. And it's kind of like, well, you have to, stand firm in your boundaries and your values. And that's where the self-respect comes from. Because if you don't respect yourself, then how are you going to expect someone else to respect you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Pretty hard to do.
I'm thinking about a number of different posts I've seen online where usually a young woman, sometimes young men, but usually a young woman trying to ask somebody for advice on what to do and how to handle a relationship where it's very clear that they're not getting what they want out of the relationship, but they're trying to find a way to justify staying there anyway. Which I find to be fascinating, because what that tells to me is they really don't know what they want for themselves. Or if they do know what they want, they aren't willing to stand up for it, one or the other.
Yeah. Yes. I think a lot of women, and, I try to be careful about speaking, in general terms when it comes to men and women. But I see a lot of women who convince themselves that they can change somebody. Mm-hmm. And, so they'll give those extra chances. He did this thing, he lied to me about this, but I know he's sorry. And, they kind of let their emotions start to drive the car a little bit. Mm-hmm. And, that's kind of when their own self-worth. I mean, it's one thing if it happens once and then it happens again and again. And I understand, but at the same time, like, you can't let your emotions and your delusions kind of take the wheel, because, it's just going to keep happening. And unfortunately, some people just have to get to a point where they've been screwed over by somebody, time and time again.
That's a story that plays out a lot. We keep going and going and going and going until finally we've had too much. And then we're willing to take some action.
Well, what's interesting about it is that for me, the way I started looking at it was I said yes from the beginning. That's my responsibility. It takes away the responsibility of the blame and the shame and the blah, blah, blah that I'm going to, that I put it on myself or anybody else, because I've had some pretty traumatic relationships, and I promise you, in those relationships, I really, really did want to point a finger.
Sure.
Because some of them were intense. So, but I also know that I said yes. I did that. Exactly what you're talking about, especially in a codependent alcoholic relationship, to be specific. There's that dynamic that I had when I was younger that I feel that I really came from that place. Trauma bonds can be addictive. Yes, exactly. Yes. It's that trauma bonding. You get together with somebody, and I went through this, and I went through that, and then and then we think we're going to have a relationship that makes any sense, and it doesn't. But I always know that I did say yes. Mm-hmm. So. Yeah,
but that's hard though. That's hard to face up to. I mean, you may have known that you said yes, but was that easy for you to admit to yourself?
At that time, I didn't look at it that way.
Yeah.
This didn't even happen until a few years ago, and I'll be 55 in January. So this took me a long ass time and a lot of mishaps. Well, a lot of training. I was like in boot camp for a long, long time.
Yeah. Hey, I totally identify. I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, I didn't go through physical abuse or anything like that, but I sure did go through a lot of self-abuse. I mean, I was good at it. There you go. I mean, it's nice to have a skill, but I mean, that's not one I really want to put onto the resume. I'm just saying.
Victimization is such a. Oh yeah, there's an Oscar over there in my closet. I'm keeping it for when if I ever need to pull it out again, just for a big reminder.
There you go. Yeah.
on how on my darling narcissistic patheticism that I would get myself into.
Yeah, you have one of the best.
And
You have
I
one of
know
the best
it's
phrases I've
hard.
ever heard for that too. She calls it a wambulance whenever she has a situation like that. I think it's a great word.
Not that I'm not compassionate with myself, because I am. But the fact of the matter is that, and I've even told Joe this, I'll be like, look, just call me the ambulance, because I'm going to need it. And I'm going to be in this for a long minute.
I love it.
And if he's still watching, you know that's true. But it took me a long time to get here, and what I love that you're doing, Ash, is that you're stepping in to help people, that young ladies that are really, this is dating and relationship and connection are definitely our biggest challenges in life. And so we need people like you to help guide us,
Yeah.
I always recommend people after a breakup. Do you recommend this by any chance? Do you say, okay, you need to be single for at least a year, period?
Yes.
No dating, no, I love you. Rock on.
Absolutely. And, and I'm sure, I don't know if you've, had experience being this way, but I know a lot of people who, will get out of a relationship and then they don't know what to do with themselves. So they get right into the next one. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, you don't even have time to recoup, and then it's like, and a lot of people, they do this so long and they don't even know how to be with themselves, mm-hmm. let alone with somebody else. And yeah, I do see that a lot, but it's the blame shifting. It's the victimization. All of that is something that I hope that I can be of some kind of a facilitator and helping, and not just pointing the finger and telling people what to do, but to help empower them to see that there's more power in taking action and making adjustments within yourself instead of just going, oh, well, I can't find a good man because of this reason or because of that reason. And it's not my fault. And like I said, it might feel good to say that in the moment because that, lets the heat off of you for a minute. But at the end of the day, it's like what, you can't, then you sort of, give control, you give that power away to everybody else. And in the long term, that hurts you because when you don't feel like you have the power, then you don't make any changes. And then you eventually just don't get what you want.
A lot of this, I think, has to do with personal self-dialogue. What are the things that we say to ourselves? Mm-hmm. These are the dialogues that the rest of the population will never hear, of course. Except that if you actually did say what you said to yourself, everybody else will say, yeah, I do the same thing. But other than that, it's not part of the daily discourse, right? We don't really talk about that side of it, but it's big. That self-dialogue is huge. Do you play a role with helping people consider what it is that they're saying to themselves?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I go through a list of questions and I help them figure it out what it is that they're, even maybe not, verbally, but what it is that's going on in their heads that's making them believe that they don't deserve to be treated right over and over and over again. Because on some level, even though they might not realize it, when you keep putting up with the same bull crap, then, on some level you do think that either you think that you deserve it or you keep holding out for hope that things are going to change.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
What are some of the practices? I love practices. I love it. And I love it because practice is the way that we retrain our entire nervous system and everything else, the way that we respond. Because I heard you earlier talk about you can make a choice on how that you either react or respond. So what are some of the tools that you could offer the audience that's listening that they could implement in their life right now to help that?
Well, there are tools, there are kind of practices that I use within the coaching sessions. And, I'll go through like visualization, and then we'll go through goal setting. We'll go through, like setting a goal and then taking action and then kind of troubleshooting certain things. Outside of coaching, I actually recently just completed a free ebook called The 9 Laws of Setting Boundaries in Dating and Relationships. And I created this as sort of like, and I wanted to give it away for free because I think it's something that's kind of very foundational, because boundaries, I think, are huge in a relationship, and not just with other people, but within yourself. And there are certain things that you have to, it's like a mindset that you have to install within yourself before you actually implement. You have to get right with your mindset around why boundaries are important. And so I created that ebook. It's the foundations. I think I called it the core principles you need to draw the line effectively and unapologetically.
So firm boundary setting.
Yeah. Oh, you're on mute, Debbie.
Okay, I grabbed your link and I put it into the chat, everybody. So here's boundaries. Boundaries are such a trip, because what I've been discovering is this. If I am speaking my truth, if I say what I mean and mean what I say, that the boundary is within it. The boundary is within it. I don't need to tell somebody, hey, yo, you just crossed a boundary. If I say what I mean and mean what I say, it is the implementation of that. I used to do it with, now these are my boundaries.
Yes.
And for some reason it didn't stick.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Can you help with that?
I love that.
Yeah, the boundaries are actually very nonverbal. They're in the day-to-day, nuances, the actions, it's one thing if you wake up and you go, oh, this is my boundary. You don't have to say that if you are living it. Like if you internalize it, and then if somebody crosses a boundary, you're like, hold up. And then you kind of go through that situation. If somebody, like say, for example, if somebody's lying, if you catch someone in a lie, and then you're like, okay, so I know that you are lying because of XYZ. So, that's just not going to happen. I do not tolerate people who lie. So either you're going to be honest with me, and if you can't do that, then, we don't have to be in a relationship. I mean, maybe you wouldn't say it like that, but I think a lot of people get nervous because they think that a boundary is telling somebody what they can and cannot do. And that's not what a boundary is. A boundary isn't, hey, you can't do this or you can't do that. A boundary is saying you can do what you want, but if you do, I'm not cool with that. So I'm, walking away or not going to be in the relationship anymore or whatever. That's how you actually set a boundary.
I'm really kind of digging it.
You communicate that through many different avenues. Like you don't have to say it verbally. It's just in your actions, the way that you act every day. And when you are somebody that doesn't take any shit and people understand that about you, it will show through in your day-to-day actions.
Yeah, I fully get that. Trust me.
I mean, I'm sure you guys have all met somebody you're like, they don't even have to tell you. They walk into the room and you know that you don't mess with them.
Pretty much, yeah. That's how that works. I promise. But there is also the side of it where I don't want somebody to fear me either. So there is a balance. Right. Yeah, there is a balance in this. And I have a very strong personality. Guess what? So that I need to be conscious and aware of that so that my compassion button is on,
Yeah. Yes. And I'm glad that you said that too, because I think that that is important, because sometimes, when I'm, rattling off about boundaries, I think that I almost forget to say, it is important to be friendly and compassionate and, to connect and be warm with somebody. And I do think that there is a balance between being warm and friendly and inviting, but also don't cross me.
There is.
There really is.
There is. And I'm loving it that you mentioned.
I'm thinking of something else too, that this is tying into something we were talking about a moment ago, and I got to bring it back there. The thing that I've noticed most often about conversations about boundaries, as opposed to, not opposed to, in relation to, let's put it that way, in relation to the way people actually put boundaries out there, so to speak, is there's one factor that very often gets overlooked. And I think you guys each kind of touched on it, but I want to bring it out some more. And that is the people who have the most trouble setting boundaries with others on particular topics very often have trouble setting those same boundaries with themselves. In other words, it's the lack of their own boundary within themselves that is really what the problem is. It isn't about the other person having the problem. It's that I want you to not lie to me, but I'm okay with lying to myself. Well, guess what? That doesn't work. I mean, that's basically saying I would have set a boundary, but I'm not really going to.
Well, yeah. I love that. I want to talk. I want to. That was great, Walt. But here's one. I love what you were talking about. In fact, someone on Facebook does too, about nonverbal. Nonverbal communication is 90% of how we communicate. And I think you just probably said the most important thing about boundaries anyone's ever said that I've heard lately. And it's really not about what you're saying. It's about what you're doing. It's those actions. Somebody said intentions of what you're willing and not willing to accept. And I think that is also true. And I love how that you put that. And because our nonverbal cues are almost, well, not almost, they are bigger than anything we can say. Great job with that.
It's definitely true. Definitely.
Yeah, that's great.
Nonverbal is what we get more of, really.
Well, I remember the day when I was with somebody for about 9 years, and it was an abusive relationship that I said yes to. And I was just as abusive back with my mouth, But I remember at some point saying, you're really cool with what you do, and I'm not cool with what you do. So just do what you're going to do. And if it's not working for me, then apparently I'm going to need to do something about that. And then a year later, I focused on myself, and I was in my 30s at this. No, wait, 20s. Oh, no, about 30. And then I worked on myself for a year, lost 150 pounds.
Wow. Got
my shit straight for real, like that. But there was this, and so when you were talking about that, because basically that is what you said. And I sat there and I'm like, I remember actually doing that. Mm-hmm. But man, I'll tell you, it was tough to get to. So it's that recognition though, that you can recognize in yourself, there's a greater need here than somebody doing what you think that they need to be doing and really getting into what you choose for yourself. And if they're not doing stuff that doesn't work, well, if it's abusive, I highly encourage to get out. But other than that, yeah, and I've been there too in that, and there's, but all of that really is important because it's what brought me to where I'm at today. But the boundaries were the biggest thing. I didn't have a boundary. Oh my word. So what do you say to those out there who are listening to you like I was? And I still am implementing them today. Don't think I've perfected this because I have not. Boundaries, though. What do you say to the person who goes, I don't even know where to start? What do you mean boundaries? How in the hell am I going to make a boundary? What do I do? Where do I even start with that?
Yeah. You have to, I would ask them, how is the way things that are now, how is that serving you? How happy are you?
Beautiful.
And if you're not happy, if you don't feel like your relationship is serving you, what can you do? What can you do now without the other person, doing anything, what can you do alone that can change your outcome?
What if they tell you, I don't know?
Okay. This is the tough client here. This is the really tough one.
Well, because that was me. I don't know. Because I was really whiny.
There is this really, there's this really annoying coaching question, in the coaching space that asks, well, if you did know, what would that be?
What would that look like? Right.
If I did know, what would that be? I still don't know. I would start with, I had to, before I could get to boundaries, I had to start with looking at myself in the mirror and saying, you're really all right.
I would, at that point, I would then, kind of backtrack and look at, your self-worth, your self-respect.
Yeah.
Going into your past maybe a little bit and figure out where it is you come from. Not really to be in the therapist, because therapist is a different profession, but just kind of understand where you're coming from and how you got to be where you're at right now. And, I would challenge you on questions about, what is it that you're getting out of being in your situation where somebody is not treating you right? And then what are you going to, what are you prepared to do to change that? Is it an important question? Because some people, they'll show up for coaching and they may not be prepared as they thought that they were. And that's fine. Some people are just not ready to do the work. And I think that that's really important when it comes to being coached, is you have to show up and be ready to do the work and show up for yourself. And you have to be ready to do that. I can't make anybody be ready. I can't tell anyone what to do and expect them to do it. It has to be a conscious choice that they make. They have to be ready to change their outcome.
Yeah. You said something really important there too that I want to return to. You talked about, let's see, how'd you say it? You talked about the payoff for the current situation. Mm-hmm. We tend to forget that even though the current situation is undesirable for whatever the reason may be, there's a payoff. Otherwise we wouldn't be in it.
Exactly.
That's a big deal.
And often the payoff is they get to trick their own minds into thinking that, it's not my fault because I was, I had this trauma from my past and that's why I am the way that I am. So I can't change it, and that's often, one of the things that I help people work through, without, going into counseling or therapy work, but it's, there's all kinds of, and a lot of people don't realize what it is that what they're getting out of being in that victim mindset, but there definitely is a payoff because like you said, if there wasn't, they wouldn't be doing it.
They wouldn't be there. That's right.
Yeah. But it's often easy in that moment to be a victim then, because they're afraid of being faced with the effort that they're going to have to do, that they're going to have to face to go through, the process of owning their self-worth and then being able to influence, and I don't want to say demand, but command, which is different than demand, but command others to treat them with the respect that they hold within themselves.
I think a big portion of what you're talking about also is that we as humans, when we're trying to either face or not face stuff that we're dealing with, stuff that's influencing us, stuff that we're influencing ourselves with, we often find ourselves getting close to having to come face to face with that thing. And the moment that we recognize, the moment that we sense that we're getting there, that's the moment we will do anything we can to move away from it. Because we've convinced ourselves on some level, well, I don't dare go there. If I go there, that's the end of me, or that's the end of my life, or that's the end of this relationship, or that's the end of fill in the blank. Because we've convinced ourselves that something that isn't actually necessarily true, but we convinced ourselves whatever that scary thing is, that I can't go there. That's going to cause me really horrible things in my life if I go there. And it's usually not true.
Yeah, I think there's a saying that it says something like, if you haven't addressed your past trauma, your relationships will.
Yes.
They eventually will.
Oh, they will. Oh, will they ever?
Yeah.
And then create some new ones to
Mm-hmm.
recover from. So, oh my word. You know, the one thing I love is that there is the possibility and hope to find somebody in your life that matches you. There is the possibility and hope. And if any of these things you've ever experienced that you've been listening to right now, understand that I'm on the flip side of that Ash and Walter are on the flip side of that. And so if any of these things are resonating, there's a really good chance that if you were to work with someone like Ash, that you could get to a space where you're actually attracting that in which you truly desire, because you actually know what you desire. You may not know, you know?
Yeah, that's important, because you got to know that there's a potential for improvement, the real potential, not just theoretical. It's got to be something that could actually happen. If you know that, I actually think anybody who's dealing with any kind of relationship issue or really any kind of life issue, if they knew that the thing really could be resolved in a way that would actually feel good to them and benefit them, I think they'd be a lot less afraid to go after it. I just think we convince ourselves it's not available.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We get stuck. We get stuck.
And how can you get anywhere if you're convinced that it's not available?
Right.
You can't. It just doesn't work.
You know, we get stuck. It's like a broken record that's, you know, back in the day, I'm old enough to remember records, and, you know, you're stuck. You're like, same shit, different day. Why are you so bad?
In my day, it was the cassette tapes with like the little crinkles and the.
Oh God!
There you go. Yeah.
Okay,
Exactly.
That's it. So if you're crinkled like a cassette tape, then you probably need to just give Ash a call for real. Okay, get uncrinkled.
Get uncrinkled.
Get it straightened out.
I love it.
Seriously, you know, there's some of these things that I truly wish that I had known when I was younger, because I just do. But I'm really grateful that I know them now. And that's why I'm so excited about you, Ash. Like I said, you're reaching an age group that needs this right now.
Yeah.
What's super is I have watched in my life how that it has went to younger and younger generations that are now starting to get involved with, why is this happening and how can I change it? You know? So what is your favorite story of inspiration?
My favorite story of inspiration.
It could have been a client, could be you.
Could be something that somebody told you.
I mean, I've been very motivated by, you know, my experiences as well with, you know, I've had, you know, some past relationships that weren't healthy either. And just, you know, convincing, you know, just being convinced that, well, for me, it was more about, I think I used to be like pretty heavy in a codependent mindset, you know, in my late teens and early 20s. Like, if I'm not someone's girlfriend, then I am nobody.
Yeah.
Even though, you know, maybe verbally I wasn't telling myself that, but the amount of devastation that I used to feel when I was broken up with by a boy in high school was unreal. Like, it was so intense, like way more than my friends were having. I mean, I wasn't eating, I was losing weight.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, and I just thought, what is going on here? Like, why do I feel so like the world is ending just because, you know, a boy broke up with me? It's ridiculous. And I remember having these thoughts like, why is it so hard on me when my friends, they might be down for a few days, but then they bounce back? What's going on there? And I think ever since then, over years, I've realized that I had a major mindset issue. And I felt that I needed somebody. And it took time for me to realize that I can be with or without someone and be okay and be happy and be a functional person. And that I don't have to be treated poorly just to be with somebody. And it took a long time, but there, I had a relationship with someone who I found out was having some pretty serious mental health issues, that could potentially put me in a dangerous position.
Yeah.
And even though it was hard, I had to tell myself this is not my future. Like, I can't have a future with this person because it would just be too toxic. And that, in going through that period, I think has been my motivator for helping others, because I remember so well how it felt to just feel, such a loss of controls, and like my self-worth depended on somebody else. And it was so hard, and it breaks my heart to know that there are other people going through that. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I can't, I feel called to this, because I'm like, I know that I can be, if I can help one person, then I've done what I need to do.
That's it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Totally. Yep.
Totally.
That's it.
Love that.
Yep, for sure. And the exciting part is that when you do things like this, like being here today with us, is that it puts it out there permanently.
Mm-hmm.
And there's such awesomeness in that. And I'm just really appreciating you. And thank you for sharing your vulnerability. I can only imagine what that must have felt like at that time, to have to make a decision. Maybe not so, it sounds to me like it was a really tough moment in your life, but it was also the moment that you saw that you'd be okay anyway. And I think that was the most important thing, is letting people know that you're going to be okay. You're going to be all right. And I love that you're doing that.
Did you have a coach or a mentor of your own, somebody that you talked to that helped you get past that key stage? To make that, cause it's never always one place. This is where the whole thing changed. But very often there's somebody or more than one person who helps us get there. Was there anybody like that in your life?
If there was anybody, outside of, I watched a lot of, self-help gurus, in the last decade or so, but really even before then, I would say that my mom was, somebody who, although, she didn't have perfect relationships by any means.
Actually, I found the best coaches don't necessarily have good relationships early on. They learn how to have them, but they often came from having really lousy relationships. That's what made them good coaches.
Yeah, but what I remember when in those low moments where I, was, where my heart was broken by somebody, I would call her, crying, Mom, and then she would always kind of have, she almost kind of took like a little bit of a tough love approach, like, forget that person, like, you're better than them anyways, like, snap out of it. She did it lovingly, but it kind of just, I think, understanding like that she believed that she felt that I could do better than this. And I'm like, she believes in me. Why don't I believe in me? You know what I mean? So I think that kind of, helped motivate me to do better.
Well, plus having her faith in you like that, it's going to help reinforce your own faith.
Yes.
Just because of what you said. If she believes in you, it just makes it easier to believe in yourself, just because somebody else believes in you.
Yes.
Actually, I just absolutely love that, because that's what moms do.
Yeah.
We believe in our babies. That's for sure. And I love that she showed you that you could believe in yourself, and that you're showing others that that they can believe in themselves, because as being their coach, you're believing in them. So bravo.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm curious. Do you actually, when you sit down with somebody, you're going to do a session, help them out with whatever it is that their issues are. Do you actually go through a process I've heard many coaches go through where you just sit with yourself for a few minutes beforehand and you actively put that person in your mind in a place of being the person they're trying to get to?
Yeah. I definitely try to empathize with, whatever situation. I mean, if I go into it, especially once we've gotten into a few sessions and I really understand what it is that they're dealing with, I do, kind of take on that mentality. And it's almost like I start to experience certain things with them, and that's one thing, in my whole life, I always thought that I always considered, do I want to be a therapist or a counselor? I guess I'm kind of, doing similar things, but I always remember being a little bit nervous because I thought, well, am I gonna, start attaching myself to some of these, problems that people have?
Yeah, that's very valid.
And sometimes, and it is, sometimes I think, I wonder if so-and-so's doing okay, but that's just human. I don't obsess myself with, certain people's personal lives, but, I think that it is important to have empathy and to truly care. But I have to have boundaries myself, how much I can care before, this is starting to, dig into my personal life. So, I have boundaries within myself, even as a coach.
You have to, otherwise you really can't coach.
Right.
Yeah, you do. You have to, Wayne Dyer said it best. Just remain unattached from the outcomes and practice the art of non-interference. Just allowing.
That's beautiful. I love that.
It is.
Thanks.
Well, Dyer was an amazing man, no doubt.
He was, seriously, Wayne Dyer was like incredible. If anybody's listening to this right now, change your thoughts, change your life. Go.
Yeah, there's a good title right there.
Tell you what.
Yeah.
Ash, it's been seriously delightful to meet you. And I hope that those are listening, if you have any of the things going on that we've been talking about, please reach out to Ash. And I've posted damesthatknow.com right into the chat, jamesthatknow.com. And how do they get a hold of your new ebook?
So it's actually not linked on my website yet, but if you go over to my Instagram is linked on my website, or you can just type in, Instagram /Ash Pariseau. If you go to the link in my bio on my Instagram, it will tell you how to get the ebook.
I see it. Oh, the link tree's there. Okay. Got it. Okay. I'll just grab I'm going to pop the link tree right here into the chatty too. Here you go. There, everybody.
We'll make sure that gets into the show notes along with the main website link. So we'll get both of the links in there too, so they can find you and they can find the freebie as well at the same time. Something else I want to add to what Debbie just said, because I agree with her totally. I want to thank you on behalf of the people you've never met, that you've never talked to, you never will talk to, but they've heard you on a podcast, or they read something that you wrote, or they heard about you through a client that you worked with. All these people whose lives you have touched, and you will continue to reach out and touch more and more people's lives, but you'll never hear from them and you'll never know about them. On their behalf, I want to thank you for what you do, because you're helping them in ways that you don't even see.
That's right.
Yes, that's very important. Yes. I really appreciate that as well.
And we appreciate you too. We appreciate you, Debbie. I mean, you were the perfect interviewer for this. You really were. I mean, because you know the subject. You have been through this so many different ways, and you know the subject inside and out. Man, I was so glad this is a show that Ash chose to be on, that you were here too. So thank you.
Me too. I love this topic of conversation. And Ash, I appreciate you tremendously. Thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you. Thank you for asking me to come on. I was on, I got, the request, and then I was like watching a couple of your episodes, and I'm like, man, these guys are really cool. Like, they're just, laid back and conversational. I was like, yes, I definitely need to have a conversation with them.
Fabulous. Well, we're glad you said yes. That's a great thing. So thank you very much, Ash. We appreciate you. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. And we will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.